You did. All right. It's cliche now as the MC here to say something like, you know, boy, I really like the presenter that's coming up today. But it's true. It's true this time. Really, 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 it's true. Kellie is on our organizing committee, and I'm so excited to hear what she has to say. So I'm going to turn the clicker over to Kellie Blunk as a presenter for today.
Thank you. So I am Kellie with HR Growth Advisors. I have been coming to 1 Million Cups for a year, about the same time that I decided to officially launch HR Growth Advisors. I've been doing HR consulting part-time previous to that. And so actually Jason Gruender was my very first person who invited me. And
surprise, surprise.
I know, right? And then was surrounded by an awesome network. And then about 6 months ago or so, I was asked to be on the steering committee. And I can tell you, just from sitting in your seats or standing up wherever, it is an awesome experience. I've learned something new every single time I come. And it's an awesome environment to be supported by other entrepreneurs. So without further ado, I will continue. So what is HR Growth Advisors? We empower growth through people, and then we also empower, we guide that growth through proactive HR strategies. So really what I'm trying to do is partner with you to make sure we mitigate any crisis. The phone calls that I get, I want to make sure you've already had a step 1, 2, 3 before you even get to the phone call of me. And then just making sure you're set up for success moving forward as well. So the people that we help, or that I help, is setting up small businesses. So somebody who doesn't have an HR person, maybe they don't have any employees at all yet. And then also managing change. It could be helping them go through their next milestones. It could be, you know, you're going from 25 employees to over 50, and now all of a sudden you have other compliance regulations you have to go through. And then I also help build your HR team with you as you go. So a lot of times HR is extremely broad. Those HR team members may have never touched pieces of HR, and instead of replacing them with someone else and damaging your culture, I come in and I help grow them with your team so they are actually continuing to build what you have already been working on for so many months, years, whatever it is. And so this is kind of what it looks like. We find gaps. We partner with the internal team, and then we mitigate risk, and we help develop competitive advantages. So that's looking at your specific location, your industry, your company size, and then we prepare for your next growth milestones. So again, that could be going from where you don't have any benefit advantages because you're under a certain employee size. And then once you get over 5 employees, you may have a little bit of discount, but it's kind of working with you to determine what does that look like for your company and your growth strategy. And then also it's looking at compliance requirements. If you have a layoff, unfortunately, you have to do, if you're going to be doing any mergers and acquisitions, it's really working with you to make sure those things go smoothly. And then obviously I still have the on-demand services. So if you have something that comes up this last minute, I can help walk you through that. Unfortunately, with policies, you can only put so much in black and white, and I see some other HR professionals in the room, and I can tell you, we have seen it all. And there's things you cannot write a policy for because you don't know that it's ever gonna hit. And so you deal with it as it comes. And anyway, so that's kind of what we do. So to be honest, when I applied to present, I had initially talked about, you know, just presenting about my company. And as last week, I had some conversations with a school, and then as I was continuing to work with my presentation, I decided to switch. And so I called my dear friends, and I asked permission to pivot. So if you want to hear more about my company, I'd love to talk to you about that, but we're going to flip to my passion project. And that is improving the workforce. I am so tired of every single time I walk into an employer, and the answer is, the workforce is decreasing, they're not prepared, they don't want to work, and they vent. And then, you know, I go to the schools and they're venting, or, you know, we talk to those and they're venting because they're trying everything they can, and there's just gaps in between. And I'm not gonna say I know the answers, and actually that's why I wanted to present this here today, because I figured we'd have at least a good source of people here that could help me through how to work on this. So instead of venting about it, I want to help do something about it. So this is kind of the cycle that I was thinking through, and this is Where I feel like it starts is developing the high school students, preparing their mindsets for I'm going to college, or I'm going to work, or I'm going to do that. And then the students get into college, and most students say, well, I don't want to work while I'm going to college. And so they don't. And then they get out of college, and then they may or may not have work ethic. And so you go into, your employee goes into their 40-hour work week, and then their life changes. They have that on top of it. So if this is actually working well, you should have employees who are actually still teaching their children how to manage all of these things, which then continues to broaden and improve our high school people that are coming through the schools. So it makes this whole process a little bit easier. So where I feel like this is broken is about right here. And it's, again, not a lack of anyone trying. This is not me venting about anybody not doing the right things. It is, I think we just need to continue to find out what's missing and continue to improve on what we're already working on. So we're developing the high school students, and in that process, we start talking to them about work and how they need to go to college. So let's go here. Whenever I went to career fairs, and I'm sorry, I'm talking extremely fast because I know I only have 6 minutes. I'm probably going to go over, so bear with me. Employees are under the impression, and their parents are under the impression, that employers focus on grades, and that's what they care about. And so when they go to write their resume, they say, I have a 4.0. I am going to stand here and tell you, I don't care. I don't care. I care, could you manage other stress? Could you pass? Could you, there's this whole saying, what do you call a doctor with a C or an A average? A doctor. Unfortunately, there's life lessons in between. So yes, the doctor with the C's average may or may not be as good of a doctor. We don't know that. But what proves it is the work completed. And so that's the direction that I want to take this, is showing them and teaching the students it really matters on what you can prove you have done, not whether or not you can pass a test. And then right now, there's, in high schools, and again, this is where I need to dive in deeper. I don't think there's a lot of training on like brain dumping or brain mapping, or like, I don't know if anybody sat with Jay. I love whiteboarding, and so I love what Jay does too, where you take your brain and you dump it onto a board, and then you make, you can make some sense of it. Because when you're in high school, you have school, sports, life. You have other things going on outside. The rest of the process, college, employer, you're gonna have the exact same thing. And then the next part is a little preparation for how life events change on top of that. So you graduated college, and now you have your 40-hour work week job. And after the job, you get to go for walks, you get to take your pet for walks, whatever it is. And then, oh shoot, you get married. And then you have a kid, and then you have 2 kids. And then, oh shoot, now my parent needs me on top of that. And I'm also eligible for a promotion. Do I take it, do I not? And all of those things combined also put stress on your job, but also put stress on you. And so through all of that, there's this continuous improvement process that I really want to get through to kids, that throughout your entire life, you're not going to stop learning. You're going to continue to evolve no matter how you do it. And so this is the part that I really want to focus on too, is teaching them, like once you get to here, how do you manage your time? How do you become even more effective every single time? And I can talk about personal stuff on that too, where I worked a ton of hours, and I had to learn, because of things that I was not expecting, I had to learn how to decrease my work time so that I could accept things I did not sign up for. And so that's the things that I want to also teach other kids, is how do you pivot? How do you evolve? Again, I'm fully aware I have 6 minutes and I got a lot of stuff to do. So I am probably already over. So like, how do I think we, and it's not just me, because I'm not an expert in all the things that I feel like may or may not be lacking. There's probably more things on here that we can add. The 2 places I want to focus on first are going to be the high schools and then the employers. With the high schools, it's going to be that student mentorship, connecting students to small businesses, maybe even large businesses too, time management, problem solving, and this mental empowerment is, obviously mental wellness, mental therapy, all those things, but really zoning in on how do you move forward? How do you conquer this? not this happened to you, and it's really how can you move to that next step? But you may or may not have a choice. You're gonna have to move past that. And so this high school student is going to have to move to college. How do they do that? They're gonna have to move to an employer. How do they do that? They're gonna have to deal with having kids on top of their crazy job. How do you do it? And so really getting into partnering with mental wellness to do that. And then obviously you can read all the same things about college. I feel like, and the reason why college is not a priority to me right now is because I feel like college is really trying to do it as well. They have a lot of programs. I feel like high schools have a lot of programs that they're trying to do with this. There's just some gaps maybe in between. And then the employer side, it's gonna be more of that life coaching. I mean, employers provide EAP or employee assistance programs, but it's like 2 free sessions to a guidance counselor. And they provide some of these other things, but I feel like this would be a next step level of saying, let's actually, I understand you just lost a kid, or I understand you're getting ready to have a kid. These are the resources that I want to bring in to help you, to help navigate through that. Or maybe it's just a cookie cutter thing and the employer can, or the employee can kind of take what they want from it. Time management, mental empowerment again, and then critical conversations, which you'll also see in college, because you have to be able to have those and receive those, no matter where you're at in life. And then family support groups. I keep seeing this a lot lately, and I think it's all the parents feeling pressure of going back to school. I've seen, I don't know how many posts about, I just feel like I need to provide support, and man, oh man, I feel like that, anyways, connecting them with that. So here's some barriers of entry: knowledge of competitive and reasonable pricing, because obviously we're gonna be partnering with schools. And also right now, the schools are having reduced funding, so that's a whole nother barrier. Programs already in place for larger schools. I'm not really sure how many of the rural schools are being helped right now. Time commitment from active students. Parents already stretched too thin. And again, I'm not a mental wellness coach or therapist, and I'm not the expert in some of the other pieces. So it'd be definitely me partnering with someone to help be able to do this. This is a huge project, or a huge topic. And so I was actually talking with DC about this, and should we potentially have this as a panel discussion where we line up the people that could do this? So think about that too. Again, my name is Kelly, and I know I'm over time, Jay, I'm so sorry.
All right, we will, oh, the hands are already flying, so we will start here, we'll work our way around. So,
Okay.
Brandy.
So Kelly, do you know Stacey Ellsbury, the Career Center?
I've seen her.
Okay, so probably a connection you need to make in terms of having some longer conversations about ways to start this and things like that, but she would be an amazing contact for you in terms of what the high school level can do.
Okay.
All right, saw hands, Trish?
I think this is such a huge need. Let's just start there. But I think high school is too late. I think you need to start with parents as teachers, because the biggest problem that we have with kids today, and I could go on about this for 42 hours, as someone who employed high school and college students, and the lack of work ethic, is parents want to be friends with their children, and children need boundaries. So even if you have the means, parents need to teach their kids, in order to get all this goodness, you have to do this. And so there has to be a work ethic. So when I was interviewing for staff, the number one question I asked high school and college students was, what chores did you do at home? If they did not do chores, then they have no work ethic, and it's not my issue to train them how to sweep a floor or load a dishwasher or things of that nature. So I think if you start younger with parents as teachers, and I can connect you with Christine Smith, who runs Parents as Teachers, and have them start with their curriculum and in grade school of, depending on what you want to do later in life, the A's and the B's aren't the most important thing, but work ethic and learning how to pivot and those things are very important. So high school's great, but in my opinion, it's a little too late. They need to learn that earlier.
Feedback.
Yeah, that kind of leads me into the question that I had is, and actually I agree with what you're saying, but, is there any kind of testing to see what level they're at as far as those kind of skills you're talking about?
Are you talking about from the, I guess, the employee side or the student side?
Student
side?
Like to,
Not that I'm aware of, but that could be an additional thing we could try to build out for them.
We'll go back to Will and then we'll keep working our way around.
Yeah, I guess two things. One, I was just curious, I know you cut yourself, if you wanna call it that, short, but I would be curious kind of maybe what your ask is, if that, in terms of your HR consulting business. I'd be curious, like what's I'd say missing, or you could use a partner for. And then two, like you said, I feel like your workforce topic is so general or broad that a theme on both your things that stuck out to me, and I think it is in your wheelhouse potentially, is this idea of like transition. So I just graduated high school. Maybe I dropped out of high school. You know, I'm 19 now, or I'm returning to the workforce after being a stay-at-home mom for the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
I got fired from my job, or what? You know, I lost my job, I got laid off. These are like these moments that you might not be an expert, but I think it's in your wheelhouse. And I wonder if there's, you know, small workshops or, you know, so I work for a staffing and recruiting firm, and one thing's kind of like professional, personal, is I'm trying to like team with, whether it's the Workforce Center or Job Point or Love Columbia, to where it kind of connects to what I'm doing professionally, but about helping people bridge that gap from like, you know, maybe they just want to pivot their career, or maybe they've had a spot where they haven't had consistent employment, or they don't have a good resume, and those sort of things. So maybe some kind of micro, dare I say, workshops or something about people in a transitional spot.
Absolutely.
Boot camps in that space.
Absolutely.
Yeah. DC.
So, I like Tricia's question. What chores did you do? So, as an HR professional, what was your best kind of indicator to know that somebody would, I mean, it's impossible to know, but you know, a high probability that they were going to be a good employee? And if there is an indicator, maybe we can reverse engineer into how we can instill that in the school. So that's my question.
It honestly, it's always boiled back to how many other things have you managed. I mean, yes, you can go to college. Some people have more hours. I mean, you talked about a doctor. I mean, they are working as they're going to school, so that's a totally different animal. But a normal marketing person, HR person going through college, whatever, I mean, they have their normal coursework, but it does not take all of that time, majority of the time. And I guess what I'm looking for is somebody that's gonna do that plus more, and how they were able to manage both. Were they able to manage both? And the other things in life, and just really that they can handle different levels of stress, because it is not always equal every single day. Everybody talks about work-life balance. It is not a balance. It is a harmony, and you gotta learn how to flex them all. So I'm sure you've all heard that saying.
Amanda.
So I echo everything that Trish said. I'm trying not to put on like my tinfoil hat of things that I could talk about with this, but I don't feel like it's a kid problem. And this is somebody who has a 10-year-old and a 3-year-old, and trying to teach a 10-year-old money management, like soft skills and all of that stuff. And we're grateful she goes to a private school that really teaches resiliency, and like that small classes, they have time they can go to like their room and work out a conversation, like they have that. I know that that's not the same as much for public schools, just because funding and all the things that you said. One thing that we did, so this is where I'm getting to it, is she's in extracurricular activities that are fairly expensive. And so our goal is like, how do we teach her that, like, to be grateful for what she has without being like, we're paying for this, like, you better try hard, you know, like not going about it like maybe our parents did. And but for her to learn that like, this is extra, not everybody gets this, and like, we're putting our time and money into it, therefore, these are the things that we would like in return. Like, you try hard, you show up, whatever. So then, to do that, we bought the board game Rich Dad Poor Dad. And I don't know if anybody's
they
played
had a
that.
board game. I I know the book.
Yes, which ironically is fairly expensive for being a board game. Like, learn about money management, but here we are. But that in there taught you, like, if you have a child, like, per your, like, you have to pay taxes, you have to pay your house payment, all of those things. And then you have, like, you're going out to dinner and you have to pay $150. So I'm wondering if there's, like, ways that we can get this to the parents to teach the child from a young age. Like you said, high school's way too late. But to learn those soft skills, like having a conversation, you run into somebody and they like, bump into you. Like, what's a way that you can react, and having those kind of conversations and situations, because sometimes you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know what you're gonna run into at school. And so I'm almost thinking like a board game that parents can play with their kids that could have those situations in it.
And you can charge a lot of money for that.
Basically, an emotional intelligence board game
Yeah.
kind of.
Yeah.
We used to have
Um,
payday
We're
back in
still-
the day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
Actually, that's along the lines of what I was going to say. I have
Okay.
a 19-year-old at home who's in a formal job, and she's coming to me almost daily asking me how to handle certain situations that she's facing. And I'm like, I was not a rebel, she is a rebel. And, she wants to fight and be aggressive, and I'm like, no, that's not how we do things. And I think a lot of kids right now just don't understand that social emotional component, how to stick up for themselves and advocate without being disrespectful and rude.
Can we just get rid of social media
Yes,
There you
please.
go.
for kids, please?
Scott,
I'm gonna respectfully disagree with some of the things that have been talked out. Granted, yes, we need to start young. But I have seen adults who have been out in the working world for a while who would need something like this. I see nothing wrong with teaching in high school or even college. Stacy King's here, could talk with you later. Stacy Ellsbury is a wonderful resource with her apprentice program and all the other things she does. But I think what you can also do is, as you hit these different levels, you can have some of the people who are getting the idea work with some of the younger people, so this way it doesn't all fall on you, or you have to hire a big staff to do this. They'll get more skills out of learning as they teach others what they learn, but it's all levels that do need it. Yes, games and things like that would be great for the parents and for the younger ones, and I think Jay has some skill in that. So, in terms of developing games, but it's a different approach, but I think it's a macro type of thing, and then you can focus on the smaller parts.
yeah, we'll circle back around. We'll go here.
I've got two random things. One, I really liked what you said earlier about private school. If you ever go into the private school, charge them extra so that you can pay for the things that you're gonna do for the public schools. It's just a way to get your money back, but also still provide that service that you can to somebody that can't pay as much for it. Just a random suggestion.
Okay.
The other one that may or may not be helpful, if you're targeting the high schools, it's gonna have to be on socials. And I actually think short form videos of how to handle hard situations or life events or things like that would actually do your brand really well. I hate suggesting those sorts of things because I know they're obnoxious, but I think it would do well in this situation.
It doesn't have to be obnoxious.
Go there, and then we'll come back up to Leslie.
When I sort of hear you talk, I think about your like go-to-market strategy, and I have massive concerns about talking to kids and telling families how to parent.
Yes.
And so when you've got inroads to all of these businesses and you're in HR, like you've got years of experience of maybe leaders being better leaders. And so you talk about the workforce coming in, there are issues there, but there's massive issues with lack of leadership and training within companies. Why are you not providing a culture where people want to stay? Where they're coming here and gonna improve not only a little bit of money, but their overall self. So with you, like, I gotta think, who's gonna get you money? That high school kid isn't. You know what I mean? Their parent, you're gonna have to pull it from there. Like, it's gonna be difficult. And then you're doing like B2C, all this consumer stuff, all everywhere. Whereas you're already a trusted advisor to businesses. Hey, this is what I've seen over the last 5 years. Let me talk about the additional services that I can bring. But we need to train your leaders how to listen. We're gonna train your leaders how to cast a vision and to train people around them. And you can get a high school kid or you can get a college kid. And we look for people who are honest.
Yeah.
If you got an honest kid who wants to learn and you've got a good leadership and structure, you're gonna be able to find a good position for them in this organization.
So I do wanna say one thing about that too. I'm a firm believer in supporting and growing leadership. Unfortunately, there are so many people that do get promoted without the training. They're just ready for the next role, but they're not ready to actually lead. I do agree with that. What I've also seen a lot of times is where unfortunately a leader comes in, whether they've had 1 year or 20 years of experience, they make one bad move. And then unfortunately, they get this reputation that is smeared on them for the rest of their career as a bad leader. And what I'm also hoping with this is that we can teach people, whether it's employees or whatever, to be able to go into things with an open mind, that people do change, they do also, because I could sit there and train a leader over and over and over, but if they're staying in that organization, these employees are only gonna see what happened last month, 5 years ago. It doesn't matter. So there's a balance there that I also hope I can pull into some of this, is like teaching people that yes, one thing may happen. If it's consistent, yeah, that's a totally different ballgame. That's a bad leader. They should. But I've had a lot of leaders that have came into my office in the past and they've said, I messed up. And they have that ripple effect that they have to carry for a while. And it's, and that's something that as a leader we should all kind of come into knowing, is that will happen as a leader. But also teaching employees that that's part of these things, that we need to be able to move forward. Like, yes, that happened, I'm sorry, let's start to move forward. Let's see if we can come into this with eyes wide open again. But I 100% agree.
Who's paying, who would you think is your customer that pays you the check, is my question.
Well, so
Pays you money, who is
that's a
that?
good question. Can I go back to number one? So like, this is again why I'm here, is because I don't have all the answers. On the high school side, I'm assuming it would have to be student funding or volunteers, some sort of blend of that. Parents also paying for the student mentorship, potentially student coaching, that they want to take their kids to the next level. On the employer side, it would be employer funded. And then we could offer potentially some other things, that if you want additional one-on-one coaching, then here is a way you can pay for it one-on-one outside of that too.
All right, we'll go Leslie and then back there.
So I'm glad that you pivoted, Kelly, because clearly it's a topic that a lot of people are passionate about. It immediately made me think of a nonprofit that I was involved in, where we were working with youth in Thailand to try to catch them in elementary school, to give them positive values to avoid corruption later down the line. And I could see a model of training the trainer working really well, maybe partnering with something like MU Extension.
Okay.
I'm thinking locally right now, right? MU Extension, because that can help reach rural. Looking to companies like Feed You, who really love to be involved in the community, and maybe finding people who are not necessarily parents, because parents do get stretched way too thin, who would like to volunteer some time at a school to be there as a mentor. And there may be regulations of who can be in the schools doing what, but I know that it would be great for me. I would love to go into a school and work with a small group, for example, during their study hall or some kind of time, and troubleshoot with them, and just kind of starting that mentorship from somebody who is in the workforce, working with younger kids, high school kids, college kids, right? Preparing a mentorship program that can kind of be self-sustaining with this knowledge, that maybe you get mentored and then that's something you consider doing in the future as you grow. So
I like that too. Can I pause for just a second? I am loving all of this feedback too, by the way. So yeah, absolutely. Anyway, sorry.
We'll go to the back, and then we'll go Brandy.
Yeah, go ahead.
I love this idea of being past business owners. I think it's wonderful. I think you're way too broad.
Absolutely, yeah.
I would pick either employer, high school, and pick one and focus on that. And then, to give you an example, we own 2 daycares. We saw the evolution of when we opened them, the parents were our generation. We saw the evolution, and what we saw was when we sold, it was the parents' children that we were watching come in, and they would come in and say, as they were walking out the door, what do you want for dinner? Where do you want to go? And the child had open-ended questions instead of A or B. Do you want Chick-fil-A or do you want Burger King? Or after having, and we looked at each other and said, I can't handle this anymore, we're out. I'm out, I can't handle it anymore. We had so many discussions with parents, so many, I just can't even tell you how many.
Aggressive behavior, and found out that
Anyway.
he was at dad's house playing, adult-rated video games all weekend.
Right,
He's
well,
a 9-year-old.
right, I can't tell you how many parents I lecture.
Starts.
So you need to focus in and start, and just focus on one.
Okay.
And then either work your way down or up, whichever way. And my first task would just be go and observe. Just sit in a corner as quietly as you can and see what you observe.
Okay.
I was amazed when I just sat there and watched people come in and out of my building and went, wow. It's amazing what you can just observe.
Yep. Brandy.
Yeah, I was thinking about taking your experience on the employer side potentially, and then, chit-chatting a little bit with Phil from R3 Design, because he does the one-on-one coaching and consulting that's provided by the employer, and perhaps there's a special training track that can go along those lines in terms of how to deal with your boss making a mistake, right?
Yeah.
And maybe that person's not a bad person, but let's talk about how to overcome that. So I think one of the other comments I liked, I think was, yeah, you can badmouth parents and say they're really shitty, okay? They have a lot of things going on, so I'm not really about that. But what I am gonna say is that it's never too late to learn how to do that. And so I think that, yes, it'd be great if everybody was a perfect parent, their children were perfect. But, let's get to the employer and let's help the employer have a good workforce, and let's help train people to learn how to do that even if they are 19 or 50, let's teach them how to manage.
All right, Kelly, can you hang out, because there are hands up all over the place. We are basically at time. I'm gonna go with DJ be our last one, and then everybody else will mob you right after. Okay. All right.
Take it.
All right.
I almost feel like on the employer side, Eric with Be There Immersive might be a good connection. Even if you just pre-recorded curriculum that could then turn into one-on-one coaching. And on the kids side, I think somebody that might pay is, there's competitive sports teams that really do try to teach leadership, sportsmanship, how you act and all of that.
Yes.
That could be a group, and you can pick all the ages. Because they start young and they go high. You could pick anybody in that group to, be a potential person to pay for the service.
That's great. Thanks, DJ. Everybody who's here, thank you so much for being here. Kelly, thank you for presenting. Thank you for being brave and showing your pivot and letting us give you first impressions on that. She's going to stick around, so everybody with their hands up, please come up and check in with her.